critic Richard Fitzwilliams. Welcome to the programme. So this portrait of Marilyn has set a record at the American art market at auction. Were you expecting this, and how big is this achievement?
Well, it's an enormous achievement. I mean, expecting it, well, I mean, it's absolutely extraordinary success. Warhol captured the zeitgeist of his times. He held a mirror up to the commercial society in the United States. But I think that it would be quite extraordinary to imagine him meeting this record. I mean, the previous highest, 110 million, was for Basquiat's Ferocious Skull. And it's interesting that this, in fact, beats Picasso, the previous record for a work in the 20th century, the Femme d'Alger. So it really is an extraordinary achievement. But I think perhaps the reason is that this is an icon, Warhol, painting another icon. This was created after Marilyn Monroe's tragic death. And of course, she personified so much that was part of the Hollywood dream world, which of course, given her suicide, became a nightmare. So it is an iconic work.
I like what you say. It's an icon painting another icon. And tell us, how does this compare to other Marilyn Monroe pieces that have been sold at auction or otherwise?
Well, I think that obviously if you have an image of someone who is as worshipped as Marilyn, I mean, it depends, of course, rather like Diana. You're looking, for example, so far as Diana was concerned, she was blessed by the photographers, but very seldom could her magic be captured on canvas. With this particular work, and in way Warhol, for example, captured figures like the Queen, it's almost a timeless sense of beauty. They're icons, they're forever, so to speak, young. It's an extraordinary image, and it grows on you, and you feel almost like worshipping before it. It's quite interesting that this particular way that the art market boosts individual works, so far as the market is concerned, it goes back to the 1980s. It was very rare before then, and subsequently you get works of art which fetch enormous sums, but equally, when they are by such amazing artists, and Warhol's influence on pop art can't be overestimated, and equally Marilyn's is one of the, together with Judy Garland, one of the living legends,
Indeed,
so to speak, who met such an untimely end of Hollywood.
And Richard, how do you get to that kind of price, $195 million, and what does it say about the state of the art market right now?
Yes, you might very well ask that, because the spokesman for Christie says that this transcends art and portraiture and so forth. I do think there are those who think that a portrait that fetches such an extraordinary and phenomenal sum. I mean, this is quite or relatively common that works of art fetch vast sums, which, as I mentioned, they didn't do 40 years ago. So clearly, I mean, there are those who will see this as an example of an overhyped market. But I at least prefer to see works, even if they are overvalued, one would hope they were appreciated, and the fact that this is sold for what it has, this image of beauty will be spread around the world, and that surely is something to be pleased about.
And so we know that the proceeds, Richard, will go to charity, but where does this actual piece go to? Will the public ever be able to see it again?
Oh, well, that is a question. I understood that it had been bought by Eric Agosian, who runs a string of galleries. So it would be very interesting to see whether it is put on show, but obviously this is up to the buyer. I mean, in this market, if you own it, you can decide where to put it on show, but one must hope that works of this sort, which fetch astronomical prices, I mean, they're obviously tremendously valuable. Clearly, you want people to see it. You want people to enjoy it. The very last thing I feel sure that Warhol would have wished would be for this to be locked away.
And what other Warhol pieces are there out there that could still be sold in a normal way or at auction?
Oh, well, that we will have to see. I mean, I'm always fascinated by the fact that Warhol's, his films, his experimental sculptures, and of course his artworks. I mean, it's interesting that Warhol held a previous record at one time for a work being sold. I mean, I think that what we'll see, this clearly will give a boost to anybody who's thinking of capitalizing on it. It's the way the market works. I mean, Warhol, who after all used commercialism, and he was devastatingly subversive, and yet also what was fascinating was that he admired the commercial aspects of much of American life, and the mixture made him so irresistibly famous, and he could see that. He would see the irony of this, and I think he would thoroughly enjoy it. I hope that we see other Warhols, and they might very well fetch amazing prices, but of course they might not be of a famous and icon like Monroe, and so
Indeed.
of course they wouldn't get this publicity.
All right, we will leave it there. Thank you so much, Richard Fitzwilliams, speaking about the Marilyn Monroe piece that has sold for over $195 million. Thank you.